have you been notified that your info has been found on the dark web? Now, this is a pretty common occurrence for users, for staff, and people working in organisations, and generally across the board. Your information is on the dark web. Now, that can sound a little scary, but the reality is, as long as you are taking precautions across your logins and your information, the risk is relatively low, but you can't ignore the fact that those details are there. Now, when we talk about the dark web, what is it? Well, it's the space where I guess the cyber criminals hang out, looking to buy your information, looking to buy ransomware, viruses, all these sorts of things happen in the dark web. Now, what typically happens is when someone's credentials get compromised, when you hear about these large-scale attacks that are happening where information's being stolen, the information typically ends up on the dark web and is being sold. Selling email addresses that are known as valid, selling personal information. It might be dates of birth, it might be addresses, it might be tax file numbers, ABNs, all this sort of information that potentially can be stolen. Now, what generally starts to happen is that a profile gets built around you, and this is where we start to see some of the more targeted attacks. Some of the simple things that happen where your information, you might get an email where you click on a link and enter your credentials into a website. Now, doing that isn't necessarily going to have something dramatic happen to your machine then and then, but now your credentials, your username and your password are saved on the dark web. Now, that would probably be your business email login and your login to your system, your email, your Office 365, your Google, something like that. So now the criminals, the attacker, has a valid email address and they have a known password potentially. Now, if you're not protecting yourself correctly, there's a high probability you're using that password across a number of systems. So it doesn't take much to then find out that that might be the same username and the same password that you use on Facebook. Might be the same username and password that you use on LinkedIn. Wherever it is, now those systems are likely to get compromised. Your business email might be safe because you've got multi-factor authentication, but do you have that set up on your private accounts? And this is where taking security seriously and understanding what the dark web means for you is really, really important. So it's important that you take those steps across not only your work, and I'm sure your business is probably hammering you with cyber awareness training and information saying you need to enable multi-factor authentication. But are you doing that on your home systems as well? Have you taken the time to secure your Hotmail account or your Outlook account or your Gmail account? Put a multi-factor in place on that. Have you taken the time to secure your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, these type of systems? All of these platforms have multi-factor authentication built into them. It's a matter of just enabling it. And in a lot of cases, you're probably getting prompted to do that. Some systems that I know, like Xero, enforce it. You can't log into Xero now without multi-factor authentication. So it's really important that you look at doing those things. It's not just about protecting your work email. It's about protecting all aspects of your digital footprint, I guess. Now, with your credentials in the dark web, it may not be something that you've done. It could be that a third-party website's been compromised. Years and years ago, there were reports that LinkedIn got compromised and a whole lot of information was stolen and put on the dark web. Now, that would include email addresses and personal information and potentially passwords. If you're using the same password for LinkedIn as you are for your Office 365, then now your credentials could be stolen. So that's what we talk about when we reference the dark web, and that's really where it applies in the most general nature, is that your information is probably going to be breached at some point and leaked onto the dark web, and then that will likely be sold and moved and made available to everyone. You'll be getting phishing emails, you're probably getting SMSs, phishing SMSs with links and all sorts of things on there. That is most likely because something, part of your information, has been found on the dark web. Now, there's not a lot you can do about it. Once it's in there, I'm going to say it's near impossible for you to get that back or have it removed or cleaned out. It's in the dark web, it could be anywhere. The critical thing you need to understand is that you just protect the systems you're working on. Protect your digital identity as best as you can. That's the recommendation, that's the feedback, and that's what the dark web is all about.